Hey everyone, this is your Ravens'Voice host, Zealous here to drop some news about the upcoming release, Armored Core Verdict Day on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Brand new highlights for this title include new story and missions, over 100 new parts including weapon arms and shields, a total of 56 maps to battle on, revamped parts with a renewed tuning and upgrading system, a setting for players to take in-game screenshots of all the action, a revamped conquest system now called World Mode, a system that will allow players and teams to earn special medals for their efforts, as well as a function for operators to control AI units. Verdict Day launches September 24th for the US and September 27th in Europe. Keep your bookmarks locked on facebook.com/armoredcore for more information and updates.
Hey, welcome to this week's edition of Raven's Voice. This is your co-host Zealous here, and as always, along with Tierson.
Yo.
We've got a number of things to cover tonight besides the part bannings. A lot of topics. We've had some interesting things happen in the community this week, so we just want to take a second to cover a little bit of ground here and go on just a little bit about AC5 and Verdict Day. So, Tierson, I want to go ahead and pass this one to you. Front.
All right. Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff here before we get to the main topic. Okay, it's been talked about a bit. We put up notifications on the site. We're not really quite sure what was going on, but wanted to let you in on, because we use these forums over at ArmoredCoreLegacy.com. We do have a section over there. Two main reasons to bring this up. First, because we do have our forums there. We do have a section over there, and basically there's been a couple glitches over at the forums, and in particular there's been an issue where people have been getting an IP ban notification in error. As we are recording right now, the forum text for ACL are working on that. Part of the problem has been that they have not actually seen this themselves, so it's been kind of hard for them to know because they have worked on it in the past this week. Been a little hard for them to be able to tell, if it's actually working or not, but we have, in the last couple of days, been told that there's still been an issue. So they are actually on the forums working on that right now. Hopefully, that will be fixed soon. And by soon, I mean by the end of the night. But the main reason to bring that up is because this week, and we noted it last week, that we'd be talking about specifics about how you can win a copy of Armored Core Verdict Day from Armored Core Legacy, and so we're going to talk about that right now, and that it has to do with the forums directly. So, which is why I noted last week that you should register over at the forums. So, the details on that contest, which is starting today, and will go until September 1st. So, it will go for the full month of August. Like I said, you're going to want to register over at ArmoredCoreLegacy.com. Register for the forums. The contest is very simple, and there will be specifics out on this on the website tomorrow. But so we've got the scoop here tonight, though. So basically, it's very simple. You're not going to have to really do much. I've been told that basically the way to get yourself into the contest is to post on the forums. Not tough. There is a specific amount of posts that you have to make, and initially I was told not to say how many, but I think I'm not quite sure if I agree with that. So he did finally tell me that I could say that it will be make no less than 15 posts, and somewhere between 0 to 15 is the number. And once you've reached that number of posts on the forums, you are automatically entered to win. So. And then at that point, on September 1st, they'll do a random drawing to see who wins a copy of Verdict Day, which is Armored Core Legacy is flipping the bill on that, and we will send it directly to your house. So, pretty easy. Of course, the staff there, and that includes Zealous and I, we are not allowed to enter. None of the staff there are, none of the mods or administrators, so that sucks. But, no, understandable, though. excuse me. Let's see. Now, the only real thing here is that, you have to make a certain amount of posts. But if you make a post that is just like a word, or, basically you're just posting, if we think you're just posting just to get your number up to that point, we're not going to count those. So
please be relevant. Please be on
right.
topic.
Be relevant. Talk about the topics going on there, or make a topic. Just be active. That's all we're asking. Just come on over to the forums, give it a try. Be active. Now, we were concerned. We were concerned about the fact that the forums haven't been working all that great, and like I said, they are working on them right now, especially that IP ban error. But that's why we're giving it a whole month. So I brought that to his attention. The guy running the website, I brought that to his attention and said, well, we were kind of having an issue with it. So he's giving it till September 1st. So now, besides that, Zealous and I here, we have been talking about the idea of possibly giving away a copy of Verdict Day as well. And that's all I'm going to say about that at this moment. But we may be doing something as well with the show. So, but enter over here at ArmoredCoreLegacy.com and just do some posting, talk with other fans of the games, and you do enough of them, which isn't a lot. If you can definitely get in by putting in 15 posts, and that's not the number, but put up to 15, then that's not a lot of posting. All right, so last week I spoke about how I was trying to get an interview for this week's show, which obviously we didn't announce it, so that didn't happen. But I did just want to talk to you guys a little bit, let you know that there are a couple interviews that we are working on to get a couple people on the show. I think you guys would be pretty excited about hearing their perspective on things. I don't really want to say much more than that. I want to be a little cryptic about it. But they'll be fun. They're not just going to be like random guys like, oh, here's some guy that you've never heard of or met before, and we're going to have him on or interview him. No, it's not going to be a thing. They'd be relevant interviews to have prominent people and or things in the community, and that's about all I'm going to say on that for now. So obviously the interview I want to do this week didn't happen. I have been in contact with that person though, so hopefully that will happen in the next couple of weeks, and we're trying to get at least one more before Verdict Day comes out. So besides that, the last thing I wanted to comment on before throwing it to Zealous, he's got a couple topics then before we get into the main topic of the night. A little bit of drama. I don't even know if you'd say drama. Little bit. How would you describe it, Zealous? What we've been hearing about YouTube?
Less drama than just some questioning about the mechanics here of the comments as far as for posting. Just technical issues. I think you've had some
technical issues. I'd like that.
Technical issues. We'll file it under that, but we've seen this pop up a number of places, a number of the communities we've toured the last few weeks, and it's been a recurring theme. So it's something we want to address again here. Right.
Yeah. Well, and we do. We try to post about the show on most of. I think we're getting most of, if not all of the Armored Core forums that are out there. There might be one or two that we're missing, but
yeah.
We post about the show. We plug the show for the week, and in that we use the same topic, and in that people have commented, which is great. We actually would like to hear any comments, positive or negative.
Yep.
But it's been questioned a few times why we don't have the comments on YouTube. The answer to that, I left a long post over at ACO about this. There's several reasons for it. Mainly for us, we have the email system. We check the forums a few times a week at least, and we will be implementing. We're going to have our own website, and we're going to have our own Facebook and such. We didn't plan on getting into those quite yet, and so we're going to have all those up. But when it comes to the video, the YouTube video, which it is great, but basically it's an easy way for us to get our podcast out. That's eventually going to be embedded into the website, and that's already being embedded in other places. People really aren't looking at the comments there. And considering everything else that we already have to keep track of, and the fact that we kind of want to keep the traffic and the comments in places like the email, or places where other people listening to the show will catch them by visiting Armored Core forums and websites already. We just think that that's just a much better way to keep the comments in those areas. And so part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this tonight is that this does bring up, we got an email from somebody in the last week, basically talking about how social media, being what it is kind of dominating, or at least taking a big chunk out of what used to be a more social networking on what is still fairly popular, which is the Armored Core forums, be it ACLs or ACOs or ACUs or the garage or whichever. We're not trying to not use that. That's not the case. It's just, simply put, YouTube is more of a means to an end, and it's a great way to get our show out there. Most of you listen to it that way. I mean, we do have it up for download as well. But we're going to be expanding past that, and while it will probably continue to be put on YouTube, and you can comment on our YouTube channel, but checking each individual video for comments and such, that's just not something that we really want to do. We are going to make it easier for people to comment on things, but we're going to try to keep the comments in more of a central area instead of each individual video. But again, social media in general, I obviously think it's great. If there was any confusion about that, I kind of work in that area. I use social media a lot in my jobs in the past and in the future, even outside of anything I'm doing here. Just allowing comments on there just didn't seem like it. It was. I don't want to say productive, but no, I think I will say productive. It just didn't seem productive to allow the comments on there. So, well, and I just want to make it clear at the same time, it is not that we don't want your comments. Please don't take it as that we do.
No. Yeah.
We enjoy positive, negative. We enjoy the emails. We enjoy all the comments that you guys want to give. That's just not an avenue that we wanted to use. And I think for the reasons that I've described here, I hope that makes sense to everyone. And some people have agreed in some of those posts, in some of those topics that they understand. There it is. It's to kind of put an end to the situation, though. Do I think that we'll ever be opening that up? I don't think so. And I mean, if you really wanted to use YouTube as a way to comment on the shows, again, you can comment on our YouTube channel. That should be open. In fact, I'll double check to make sure, but I do believe that we set that up to be open, so you can comment there as well. And that is just one click away, literally. So, okay, let's see. I think you had something that you want to announce.
I do. A really fun note here. We don't get to see these all the time in the AC community. I know I was a big fan of them back in Armored Core, I think 2 was when I started watching. Mist Crown did some animations. If you guys do a search for him, he was a really impressive Japanese animator that changed a lot of footage himself from the AC intros and had some really dynamic pieces he did. But we've got an event that's actually happening. This has been announced on a number of our AC outlets, including ACU on the Mechaverse forums, also on AC Garage, and we'll have a page coming up on ACL for it as well. We have longtime community members Griffon and Deemer. They're having an AC music video showdown. The premise is Deemer has had essentially a lot of experience making videos, but Griffon has had a dream and a project in his mind's eye that he's wanted to see realized for a very long time. So, will 10-year-long planning beat years of experience? You guys are going to get a chance to decide. This video, or these videos rather, this competition is going to be formally announced once everything's posted in about a week, maybe 2 weeks. The exact date is not out there yet. But again, you can find this on all the major AC outlets, and it looks pretty exciting. So I don't know if any of you have checked out AC, like AMVs or anything before, but they're a lot of fun. I saw more fan pieces myself appear during the AC3 and Silent Line era. So to see something like this pop up again, especially a competition where we're trying to draw the community in for at least voting or for at least input, I think it's a really positive thing. So check it out, keep peeled on it, and just keep your eyes on the project.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. And I do, Deemer actually reposted a video he had made years ago, which I had seen and was, I thought, pretty good. Especially, I believe all the footage was actual footage taken from events, that some East Coast event. Named.
Oh wow.
Goes past me right now, but I've seen that video. It's pretty cool. Deemer, I would definitely give some props to some of the videos he's done. This is just kind of neat. For the most part, I support any kind of project, especially the art related. Because I'm a big art fan myself, an artist myself. So, this is pretty neat, and I hope that this gets a lot of attention. I hope that we can help with that. This is just kind of cool in general, and the premise that's being put forward with it, with Griffon versus Deemer, and just the whole situation, it's pretty neat. So yeah, you said that we're gonna have links to all this stuff. So
yep.
I'm assuming on the YouTube channel where we post it, and then at the same time, you said this is going to show up on ACL.
For sure, ACL, and I'll go ahead and make a post in the description to this as well. So if you guys want to check that out or get a direct link, you can. Again, there's not a whole lot of official information out now, except for a little bit of discussion and banner going around, but at least you guys can be pointed to the threads and topics where this will be active.
All right, you better get that.
Yeah, I better, right?
No, but okay, so no, that's great. That's great. I'm watching this myself. I can't wait to see how this goes, because like I said, Deemer's done some pretty good videos in the past, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this ends up going.
For sure.
Let's see. Was there was something else you wanted to say before we went to something else, right?
Not from me personally. If anything, the email is what I want to talk about. We received. It was a pretty large one. I know you got a chance to read it first, and it had some notes for both of us to chime in on. So
there's a lot here. We had received an email from Highwind017, and he's a European player, and he had a lot of questions and comments on what we thought about things. A lot of this is geared towards Verdict Day, but I thought this was pretty interesting overall, and I think some other people will probably have these questions as well. So, let's. There's a lot here again, so let's get started on it. I'm not going to read the whole email. It was rather large, so I've gone through already and kind of highlighted questions and comments that he had that he wanted us to address. The first one, and this is pretty much in order of how he had written it in the email. The first one was, he had said that in 4Answer, European and U.S. played on the same server, which I actually was not aware of. I didn't play 4Answer. And he's wondering what we think about that in general, and if that's something that should happen in Verdict Day.
Okay. Yeah, we covered this mildly when we were doing the I think the last 6-year discussion about FA and just who was playing on what servers, and I think the biggest thing we made was the distinction between what we have happening now with all the regions being divided and what things were like in FA. Myself, as far as the regions, having players divided as opposed to having them together, the biggest thing I've seen people complain about is the lag. Just the distance between connections, how much lag you could cause, what kind of warping's there and whatnot. I can't say I've ever been for a separatist community. I say the more regions we can get packed in, if anything, heck, the servers are good if the connections are solid. I mean, it's more dependent on that. I think that's the key issue. It's never been about trying to exclude a community in my end or anything. In fact, I always loved it when we'd have visitors even from the JP side come see us over on Kai with the Last Raven and Ninebreaker and some of the Nexus gameplay. Occasionally we had some players like Naito and a few of the others appear, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, there was lag given, but still, it gave us a chance to get in some really fun matches, and I think it just broadens things up. So.
Well, and that's my main thing. Overall, I think this is a good idea. I think that this is definitely something they should do. Obviously, this is kind of a hindsight being 2020, whereas obviously the European side and the U.S. side would have done a lot better having this. But you did bring up the big question, which is lag.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I don't really know about those things. I know lag when I see it, and that's about as far as I go. So I don't. I mean, do you think that it would cause lag connecting with people from, pretty far away from a completely different part of the world?
Again, most of this is going to come down to from the types of servers we have implemented and the types of connections. But from the little plane I did get to do online from FA and 4, there were a few times where I got to connect with EU players and whatnot. I really didn't have as much of an issue. I'm looking more towards what we're going to have on the developer end than what's going to happen in ours, and that's what we're kind of crossing our fingers about.
Well, so I mean, he goes on a little bit more about this. Not even just kind of looking past the European and the U.S. server and saying, what about the Japanese server as well? And basically, everybody, no region locks, everybody being able to play together.
Yeah.
I'm not so keen onto that. But I can't really come up with a good reason why. Maybe this is because I can't place it right now. But I'm not so sure if that would work so well.
Again, this is a dev issue. AC5, I think, has been From's largest step into an online venture for AC they've ever done. Again, the JP player base has had online since another age. They had the interesting dial-up system, but as far I love it. It's just it's something we didn't have, in the NA community, and I'm still freaking out over that. I wish that could get implemented over Kai. I'd really love to see AC2, but I'm going to talk about that some other time. Don't get me started in there.
No,
my goodness.
We won't get you started on that.
That's where my roots are. But yeah, in terms of the servers, as far as the JP, EU, NA, Australia player bases, it's something that's going to come down to how From manage these connections. I think a lot of people are saying it's a bad idea just because of lag. Right now, they're saying, well, if we can't get a smooth experience, why do it? So,
and I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. No, I mean, this is something. I played World of Warcraft for a long time, and actually, for most of that, I played with people from Australia. And
cool.
Besides the time difference, there really was never a lag issue with that. But I mean, then you're talking PC gaming, and that's completely different. And they can actually build themselves to make sure that this is an issue where you're limited on consoles. Although you're less and less limited with every incarnation of the consoles that come out. So I don't know. Now you played on the Japan servers.
Yeah, for 5 AC5.
Yeah. I mean, did you have lag issues?
The best game in my memory was actually a full Battle Royale, which was a blast. There was some warping, especially with the faster designs and the lightweights, but it wasn't anything crippling to the point of the matches I encountered in 4 FA. So that was interesting. I mean, I guess that shows there's some improvement. Now, I will tell you what was really funny about that. A lot of the times, a number of NA players who also imported said this, they would get booted out of rooms for their connection. And while I did have a chance to get some really fun matches in and to interact a bit, there were a number of rooms I was kicked out in because of my distance, and the players that were present did not want to risk or experience having the extra lag from a very distant connection. So
this tells me that this is something that at least a couple years ago From was not even considering.
Yeah.
And they did not build the game towards having connections like that. But I mean, technology, even though the hardware is the same, software improves, and maybe this is something that won't be an issue. And in 2 months, I guess hopefully we'll be able to find out.
Hopefully so. We got our fingers crossed on verdict day for more reasons than one. But getting the online smooth is just going to be absolutely critical. We have all these different campaign modes coming out and whatnot, and then a lot of your single player experience affecting an overall campaign. If you're going to have such an online driven model, be sure you have the service optimized. I think that should just go without saying. But we'll see. Remains to be seen.
No, I agree completely. If it's not going to be able to be done well, it shouldn't be done at all. Okay, so let's see. He goes on to ask about a couple options in free battle.
Yeah.
Basically, he wants to know what we think of this. He wants to know what, considering, sometimes you can't even find people playing, or you can't get in. There aren't any open rooms in AC5.
Right.
So he's brought up this idea of kind of a join in progress, um, where you queue up and
I've seen this idea.
you enter in while the match is going on. You enter in as a spectator, and then at that point you're able to, after the match is over, you're able to adjust things, or maybe somebody leaves, and then you continue going at that point. But basically, I guess the best way to describe that would be to kind of be in queue to fight next. And he goes on to even ask about this, and this is something that we do know for sure. He asks about a better spectator mode, and we are getting a better spectator mode in Verdict Day. I believe we're going to be able to follow people who are fighting. We're going to actually be able to watch things from their perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is coming. We will get a better spectator mode. He talks. He does have a couple sentences of foul language about the current spectator mode in AC5, and I don't think you'll find anyone who disagrees. The novelty of running around in your slow moving rocket guy and with a machine gun gets very old fast.
Yeah, it's been pretty neat since we've seen humans or like human scale models introduced in Armored Core. We really started to see this prevalent during Last Raven. I think all of us wanted to know just kind of the relative size of person compared to an AC. And it's always fun to give you a sense of just how big these things are, what's the environment like, and even though ACs have generally shrunk, when we're talking in terms of AC5 here. But here you go. Your AC wrecks, and you have your pilot that's ejected with the gigantic jetpack. You get a chance to interact with your environment. You can go around and try to get close to the fights. Try to avoid being run over, or you respawn or something like that. But
it's dreadful.
It is dreadful. Like
horrible.
You get your chance to interact with the environment, but not really have any kind of real impact. I know I would rather just simply go to a different type of spec cam, or just to see from the other pilot's perspective, or another mode that we used to have. If you remember the old replay footage back in the PS2 era, especially in AC2, you take the overhead view, and it would have the points of where the players are, but it would be, you'd zoom in on different players at different times. That gave some pretty sick angles, especially when someone let off a missile storm. Man.
At some point in the AC3 versions of the game, they allowed you to either watch from various people's perspectives, or a couple random camera areas. I mean, that's obviously the way to go. I don't know why they wouldn't do that. Coming from someone who does 3D modeling and animation, there is no good reason why that wasn't put in there. It is not hard to implement cameras in a 3D setting like that. There's no good reason, and that's one of the things that kind of upsets me about it. But yes, the whole flying around, you got a little gun. That's cool for 5 minutes. Shooting the other guy and getting run over by the AC. Okay, yeah, that's cute. But you should not be stuck in that. And there should be other options. And thankfully, they're at least taking it out altogether. I don't know, but you will have at least the option of following from the AC's perspectives in a match.
I'll tell you. Oh, sure. Hey, real quick, I'll tell you what was a funny thing about that, though. I don't know if you experience this in co-op. Some people would help others get through missions by having their AC wreck. This happened, and they just run around as a pilot. The best part was the main AI, usually a boss. This was done in the Chief mission, where he grabs the pile, the giant overweapon, and some of the others, and they would run around, and the main boss, would target the player, just the lone player, instead of the other AC that was in the room. So whoever you were trying to help through a mission, if it came to it, just run around, goof off with your pilot, and then have your friend plug him from behind. This also worked on the final mission 09, and there was nothing funnier than seeing this pterodactyl do a massive energy dive on a lone player and just completely ignore an AC. It's great.
No, I didn't know you could do that, but I guess that makes
great.
sense. And that sounds funny, but that's really stupid. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm hoping they scrap it. Yeah. I'm just hoping that they get rid of it. I mean, that's fun. Whatever. That's good for 5 minutes, and then it's done. So I haven't gotten to the point with Armored Core 5 where it's like the only fun I'm getting out of it is just running around as a spectator guy doing stuff. I don't think I will get to that point because it's dreadful to move around in that thing. Okay, so he goes on to say further about this though, about the join in progress, and he's actually. I thought this was a pretty cool idea, and I'd never thought of this before. Kind of a King of the Hill mode, whereas you basically you have several queues, or at least one queue, up to several, whereas the winner gets to stay in the match. The match happens, you have people waiting, and then the winner gets to stay, and then the loser has to go, and then the next person in the line comes in, and he gets to take on the winner. And this is actually, I really like this idea for two reasons. And I'm sure you think of the first one. This is reminiscent, although not the same. It's reminiscent of the running the gauntlet of
big homage
at ACMM. So I like that. we'll talk about that someday. I'm sure we'll talk about the event. But that's also, I like that because it's a very old school fighting game kind of feel, like back out in the arcades. That's exactly how it was.
Yep.
And I was a big fan. I was a big fighting game fan. I used to sit there hours in the late teens and even in my early 20s, doing exactly that. But at the same time, I was one of those guys that you couldn't get off of it. So there were times when I'd take on about 20 people before I either finally got beat or I just gave up and just gave somebody my game. So
I think the really cool thing about this arcade feel you have here, I saw this very idea come up back when Ravenshaven and a few of the other spots were active about this join mode. This harkens back to something we used to run into even in missions in the old school AC. How many times can you remember when you're low AP, you're low ammo, you've just gone through a big grind, taken out a bunch of MTs or done some huge mission assignment, and another AC comes at you out of nowhere? I think back to Corpse Maker from Silent Line out in the desert mission. A lot of players have alluded to that being a blast. Like some kind of system where you're in the middle of a mission, and I don't know what the parameters would be, if you had a certain AP count or what type of rules you'd have set up. But to have another AC come in and join, or do an attack, that's a real throwback to how those surprise missions in Armored Core used to work. And not sure how they'd implement that something like that in the context of Verdict Day, what we're talking about for 5 right now. But I think that has some potential.
We might see something that I can maybe see, if the activity's big enough, or maybe there's an option in the game where if you're getting your ass kicked in a mission where you can actually put yourself out for the mercenaries to see that so-and-so could use help in their mission and give up so much of what they would get from the mission, and then you obviously get half of that or whatever, and then you can actually take that and go in and save them. Or do whatever. That would be really cool. And I love the mercenary system, and that was an AC5.
Oh, totally. That would really get people, I think, that were doing the mercenary system involved. I just imagine, like, if you had some kind of counter, right? Like, if you were waiting in your Merc lobby and then you had a certain amount of seconds, like, to join, or you get a note about what the mission was, and you'd come into this active situation going on. Like...
Now, the downfall of that is I can see some serious trolling.
Yes. Oh, man.
But it would be cool.
It would. It still would.
But yeah, the system in general would be cool. They could implement it that way, but that would be neat. And maybe in the future, maybe they will do it with Verdict Day. Mercenary system will still exist in Verdict Day. They have announced that.
Yep.
I have not seen them announce any changes other than it's not Men of Honor. It's a different company. I forget the name at this point. But I haven't seen any other changes besides that. But who knows? Let's see. So yeah, but like the King of the Hill mode, that's pretty cool. I don't think we will see that, at least with Verdict Day. I think at this point they've got to be pretty close to being done with it. We're about 2 months out, so at this point they're in the part of the production cycle where they're getting ready to get this all sent out and get all the copies done and such. So, but they haven't announced everything. I'm sure there's probably a couple surprises out there yet.
Yep.
Excuse me. Let's see. He also a couple other things. He wants to know what we think about maybe there being an area that at least shows how many players are currently online, and I think that definitely should be there. There's no reason why that can't be done.
It was always a bit of a extraneous factor, kind of unknown in AC5, where players were, what was exactly happening, even in the territory maps.
Right.
I mean, they implemented this a feature later on that you could get a little bit more of a heads up if a region was very, very active or things were going on. We had this in the beginning of 5.2. You know, there was a lot of activity, just like you saw, like World War III happening on a certain chunk of the map. That's fine and all, but what that caused was players to rush over to these zones and territories, expecting a ton of matches and then to go fishing and to wait, like 30 minutes or more, and it just wasn't intuitive. So if we do have a form of player count, I say, hey, all for it, but have it accurate to some degree, or to have it tied to a zone or a way that you can keep better track of exactly what's happening in the territory, so if I can join here, I can find a game. I won't be sitting fishing for 8 hours. So
there's no good reason why every single player can't bring up a menu at least showing how many people are in line, and if you don't want to be on that list, you should have the option to just take yourself off.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why this shouldn't exist. I mean, this is normal. This is common now. And in a game that is set up the way that Armored Core is, as far as how you interact with other players and such, this should exist.
Yeah.
There's no good reason why it doesn't. So hopefully that does get into Verdict Day. Last question from Highwind. I told you this was a big email.
Oh yeah.
But you brought up a lot of good things to talk about. What do we think of the UNAC? That is, and we've seen this a few times, coming back with Verdict Day. Basically, you will have operators dictating things to AI. This is not the first time we've seen this in the Armored Core series. I think the first time we saw it was in Master of Arena. Is that correct?
Good point. MOA.
Yeah, but there was another point as well. Well, and obviously you had Formula Front, which is kind of the redheaded stepchild of the series. But there was another game.
SL.
Was it Silent Line?
SL was. You remember who was it? Was it Badfish or Harlequin that had that blader AI? I don't know if you remember this from way back, but someone had created a blader that was insane. I'm pretty certain this was SL.
Yeah, I don't remember. Somewhere in the AC3 series, there was Silent Line then, because I don't remember. But I've never been a big fan of this, and I think that goes back to the system they had in Master of Arena, which was really annoying. So I tried it out for a little bit, and I was like, all right, screw that. It was a neat concept. I'm sure it's great. In fact, I heard that you could create some really awesome AI ACs with that, but it took quite a bit of time. Not the case here with Verdict Day. I mean, out of the can, these AIs are supposed to be pretty good. In fact, that's honestly early on talking about Verdict Day. That's something that I heard a lot about, was how these AIs are really good, and that the operator's not going to be gimped with a bunch of junky ACs that aren't going to know what the hell to do. They're supposed to be pretty good, and there is supposed to be some ways that you can tweak them as well. So. But I'm going to pass this on mainly to you, because for me, I mean, this is neat. This is fun. This is not something that grabs my attention too much. So,
yeah, I've never gotten into the AI training exclusively myself. I've dabbled with the feature mainly in Silent Line to practice with it. I never perfected it like a few other people in our community did. We've had a couple people note about it. I know over in ACL, Oblivion Doll had a note about he really enjoyed Formula Front. That's really what got him in AC, apparently. And while he hasn't seen the system in Silent Line, he just likes that idea to be able to take more of a backup and a step back, rather, in a hands-off approach to it. I think part of that comes down to some people who aren't totally comfortable with the controls or the piloting. I'm not saying that's obviously not every instance, but I know Oblivion specifically referenced that. I'm not confident in these certain areas, so if I can get a feature where I can get something to nail down the stuff I want to do, hey, that's great. So, I don't know. It's probably not going to be a feature for everyone. I doubt I'm going to get into it super heavily. Definitely want to check it out. Obviously, I think it'll be useful to kind of fill up your team or to do missions and whatnot. But we'll see.
I definitely think it's going to give a lot of depth. If this AI is as good as they say it's going to be, and tweaking it and such, I think it'll give a lot of depth to Verdict Day, to operator players.
Yeah.
And people who would prefer to do that. I think that'll be very interesting, and I think it's something, like I said, it's something that From's been messing around with for at least 10 years now.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this on and off in the series, but you know what this almost reminds me of? It's like a pseudo RTS element that's coming into AC. You know, I imagine an operator taking an entire team and running that. I mean, obviously, you know, the team will have its own, you know, actions, and the aiming and the targeting, you won't have to macro manage in that regard. But that might be kind of cool. So if any StarCraft nuts or someone finds something in that, who knows? Maybe you could get some of them over.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, besides the fact that I've heard that it's really good, and obviously it's something that they've messed with. I mean, they did base a whole game on it at one point, a game we never saw in the U.S. on PS2. We saw it on the handheld, but the Japanese got a U.S. version of it on PS2, but we did not. Which was, Zealous and I were talking about that a few weeks ago, complaining a bit about that, because I would like to have, you know, kind of the whole collection, and that's part of the collection I don't have, because I don't have a system that'll play it. So, you know, so yeah, I'm looking forward to trying it out. I think it'll be neat, and if it's as good as they say, I think it can really add a lot of depth to Verdict Day in general by adding in kind of a whole new way to play the game.
Yeah.
So, so that's it. We had a lot from Highwind017. Thank you for the great email. A lot of good stuff. And again, guys, send in your emails to us. We love to hear them. We love to read them. You know, that is RavensVoiceACL at gmail.com. I will, in fact, plug that again before the show is over. But yeah, we love the emails. We love to hear what you guys have to say. Good or bad, you know, if you think we suck, let us know.
Yeah, that's the aim. We want to make this project as best we can for the AC community, and so whether it's a content issue, it's a technical thing, something we have posted, let us know. We want to hear you. That's
why it's called the Ravens Voice.
So simple enough.
All right, so I think we do have some time left to talk about the main topic of the week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw that to you then, Zealous. You are a lot better at this than I am. I mean, there's obviously one particular instance that I really want to talk about here, which a lot of the vets will probably already know what that is that are listening. But you're really good in this area, a lot better than I am. You remember a lot of these parts, a lot of these bands. Not so much here, but in general, there's a lot of controversy to this topic. So
definitely. I'm going to do my best not to stretch this one out, but it's something really important because it points to a time when the AC community was really guiding a lot of what was happening with the active gameplay. And this wasn't just for the tournament community, it really bled into AC gameplay in general. I think almost anybody who visited the forums or had any inkling was aware of these things. So, again, that topic's, the part banning. When did it happen? Why did it happen? When was it excessive, if anything? It's kind of funny as I'm sitting here talking about this. I got a shirt in front of me from Broken Tier, fighting game fans. It says nerf, buff, patch, and adapt. Those are all terms that I think are very relevant for modern gaming today. But in the time of PS2 and PS1 era AC, buffs and patches and whatnot and nerfs, you didn't count on that. That didn't happen.
You didn't get it.
You didn't get it. From was not going to give you a update from on high with that kind of content. Armored Core was released as it was.
Right.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say the only time you ever would get, which is actually kind of weird, because Armored Core would get updates, because Armored Core is one of the very few games that would get expansions on a console, which was pretty rare in itself. So you would get some form of an update, but the expansions came out about as much as another part of a series would. Yep. So, at the same time, you get an update, you get an expansion, but sometimes they would take parts in the wrong direction,
right,
or they add in brand new parts that had their own issues with them. So
yeah, from my personal experiences, dealing with this a lot, especially from the gatherings I attended, from the at least the 3 events I hosted, the 6 other tournaments I attended and whatnot. This is something that really cropped up a lot, and I think the core spirit of part restrictions, like why they were there, why this arose, was there was a desire and a need for variety in the types of ACs that you saw, especially at competitive events. Now, it's a pretty knee-jerk reaction, okay, to counter that kind of argument with, well, just design what you want. Don't ban anything, adapt, let your skills get through it, play around it, it doesn't matter. I'm guilty of this. It's the very thing I said, when I started. I didn't understand why is there even a need for this. That's ridiculous. What, are you trying to run away from a part that you're afraid of or something? But that's not the core of the issue. When you really look at this, especially the way people used to travel for tournaments, you had some people driving 6, 7, 8 hours even to go to a LAN event to play Armored Core and to encounter Kurosawa Mark II across the entire field, or something you probably saw already in your own town. I mean, that lack of variety, if anything, was a real potential problem. And without these certain parts, it caused players to think outside of the box a lot. Ban list started really small. Jump back to AC2 really shortly here. That the Kurosawa Mark II is the most commonly referenced ban that was out there. This was your epitome of a stable, powerful weapon. It shot fast, it hit hard. The weight really wasn't much of an issue. To the energy drain, you could amp it with optionals, make it hit harder, shoot faster, drain less. A very, very powerful weapon with an excellent ammo count. And in turn, it was such a strong choice for so many designs that many didn't have a whole lot of variety in that regard. And this went on later in the AC3 era. Especially in SL, we had the MG800. It's a famous part that's always pointed to, but there's so many issues that went on with that. I'm glad I'm segueing into this because Tierson encountered this part pretty directly, and I know he's got some notes about it.
And the MG800 was, and this coincides with the first event that I had held, ACMM1, which was very much used as a guinea pig for this. It was a controversial weapon at the time. Again, Silent Line had not been out long, and in fact, ACMM1 had been announced before even Silent Line had come out. But the possible issues with that weapon were well known, and I had decided after giving it much thought that I did not want to ban that. It was a mistake. It was a big mistake. And ACMM, which stands for Armored Core Midwest Mayhem, was dubbed Armored Core Machine Gun Mayhem. for this reason, it really is an example of why you do this. Now, I am not a ban-happy person.
No.
I never was. In fact, I disputed some bans and that people had brought up for these events, and I just plain shot some of them down. At the same time, in the past, I made decisions on some bands that a lot of people didn't like. Which is part of the whole process, is that you really need to take a large consensus from the community, and you need to take those things in consideration. But Silent Line, being as new as it was at the time, I did not ban it, and I had never seen so many builds with a machine gun, and to this day I have not. A lot of people complained about the Gatling guns in AC5. No, you don't even know. It's just everybody. And I mean, we had op-eye events, we had free for all events, and then we had the non-op-eye events, and across the board, I would say legitimately, at least 80% of all builds had that MG800. And for good reason, and you can't blame it for that, because it's being allowed. It's a powerful weapon. It's light. It's powerful. It did really well. There's no good reason, since I didn't ban it, there's no good reason why they shouldn't use it. And there is something to be said for being original.
Yeah.
And for building an AC for that sake. But at this point, we're talking about competition. And in competition, you have to kind of put originality aside. I mean, that's cool if you want to come to a competition with originality, but you can't fault the guy for not doing that. He wants to win. You're competing in events. So it ruined. Well, no, it didn't ruin the event, but it definitely put a big blemish on it, because a lot of people did have fun. But it will always be a question of what could have been. that have been banned.
Right. If anything, for me, as far as bringing originality to tournaments, you have to expect that you're going to encounter powerful parts and powerful competitive designs. It's a part of it, and I think a willingness on the part of the player, if you really wanted to use something truly unique and attempt to come and win with it, have your game polished with it, by all means. It's always exciting to see an underdog part or like an underdog build pull off something crazy that you never thought it could. But it did require definitely some forehand knowledge on the part of the player, bringing said part. So, also this idea about community consensus, I really think that hits it on the head for the way these part restrictions were discussed and the way they were handed out. This was a neat part. Like, each part of the AC community, when I say each part, the three I remember most prominently were the East Coast, the Midwest, and the West Coast with the MOC events.
Right.
We digested these restrictions differently, okay? Like, we talked about them internally, we tested, we had gatherings, things before these events to really, truly get an idea of how they affected gameplay. But we all came together at a nexus point on various forums. I think ACO is a great example of this. And any community leader had a very strong pulse. Even a lot of your tournament competitors, they all did. A strong pulse of what was happening. These topics, the strength of said weapon was being actively discussed on a forum, in a group, and there was a dialogue happening about it. So you would get a consensus, and then this information would kind of come back to the village chiefs, if you will, and then we'd hash it apart even further in our own communities, and we'd eventually build our list from there.
Well, this was part bans was as big of a deal as anything else. And in fact, once you got past the fact that you get past the arguments of op-I versus non-op-I, or human plus and non-human plus, you get past all of that. Part banning was probably the most regularly controversial topic of the days. And, it really did come down to consensus. I mean, there were people who tried holding events. I mean, I don't remember these specifically, but I do remember there were people that would post events that they wanted to run where they didn't have any ban lists, and those events never happened.
Yeah.
And because people didn't want to go somewhere and run into another thing like the MG800 and have one weapon have such a dominant feel at the.
That was the fascinating part about this. Those lists established a sense of legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that list, and that told you, okay, well, there's an active community actually paying attention to this. They're in tune with what's happening in the game and what's being discussed at large. So I can give this tournament some credence.
Well, and then you had the other side of the spectrum where you would have people who would post an event, and they had such a huge list of parts and weapons that the same thing would happen. People did not want to participate in that. They did not want to go into a competitive setting with such restrictions. And again, those events wouldn't happen. So, I mean, this would make or break your event. And this is at a time, obviously, where LAN events were huge. And they were a big deal because they only happened in your area maybe once, sometimes twice a year.
Oh, yeah.
And, you would have people from all over the country sometimes traveling to be a part of these things. And so this would make or break your event, and there would be a lot of name calling.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of just venom sometimes on this topic, because when you are trying to be someone that is establishing an event and trying to put something together, trying to get players together, either for just a friendly setting or for competitive reasons, if you're establishing that event and saying, but you can't use this, or you can do whatever you want. I mean, this again, you said it before. It came down to legitimizing the event.
Yep.
And for those who went to these, in large part, we're very in tune to the feel of that particular game, be it Silent Line or Nexus or Last Raven. I mean. And that's what it really comes down to, and that's why this is such an interesting topic. This a lot of it, in large part, comes down to the camaraderie of the community at the time. Was that we would all have this, for in large part, a consensus on what would be legitimate and what wouldn't be, and this is something that we had to figure out ourselves, because going back to what you're saying, we wouldn't get patches, so we had to fix this problem.
And the community did step up. We did lead this, and if anything, I think it led to a really open experience at actual events. A lot of people, sure, most people would come to events wanting to win or place, or win cash. But I think I'm speaking for a lot of people here. I know myself. I thought these events were just invaluable for improving as a player. And if you were in tune with what was happening in AC and you knew that you wouldn't see a billion builds of the exact same thing over and over, and you were going to see some top level competition with probably some things you might not have encountered, gave you an awesome chance, I think, to not just dialogue but improve your game. I can specifically track my progress as a player due to these events.
I have to tell you that, I mean, that cannot be emphasized enough.
Yep.
On how bad of a player Zealous was at ACMM2 up until the events that he even passed.
Oh, really?
3 and 4, and then even to his events, because he was still pretty bad. He had to continue to hold his events, and and that's the truth right there. It's speaking gospel.
Oh man, yeah, I needed my cane, man. Dude, it was rough days. Rough days.
So this is very important. I mean, and he would always get very mad whenever we'd ban parts that were obviously overpowered, because they were compensating for it. So no. Obviously, I'm joking.
I know, man.
But it's it is kind of funny because, I mean, like we were saying, this is something that would, in a sense, bring the community together, and at least at a general consensus and in an agreement. But at the same time, like I was saying, this would pit people against one another. You would have members of the community who would go at each other and never speak to each other again. Sometimes getting banned from forums and stuff because they would argue about this in such a negative manner. I mean, they could not debate it. It would turn into a flame fest.
I want to bring up a quick post Griffon made. I think it was at ACG, July of last year, and it had a really catchy title to it. It's on a lot of other AC sites too. If you haven't given it a read, check it out. It was titled "Armored Core Cannot Persevere in the Modern Gaming World." But he talked about parts of the AC community, but he also addressed part restrictions here, and I think he had a good line about it. I'm just going to quote him for a second. He said, the reason AC games in the past seem to have flourished much better in the tournament scene was the fact that tournaments can enforce ban lists, something that you can't do online. Think about some of the older classics like Silent Line, often considered by older fans to be the pinnacle of AC. If From were to do an HD re-release with online play, do you think that we'd see the same variety of styles and designs that were so prevalent in SL's heyday? Hell no. MG800s, Surf L70s, Crows everywhere. Worst case scenario, throw Op Intensify in there, too, why not? From what I'm seeing, AC needed enforced ban list in order to be as good as it was, and that's not just going to happen in an online environment.
I don't necessarily. I agree with what he's saying, and we were talking a bit about that. I don't necessarily agree with the fact that we can't enforce these things. The part of that comes into, and that's the same thing as holding an event. Is you would have to hold an event online. I mean, we participated in some events. I participated in one several months back that Cheng held, and we had a restriction. There were restrictions on parts. You had to at least come into that event with registered parts for your AC, and they would check that. Is it a lot easier to maybe get away with something? Yeah, to an extent, but I mean, at the same time, if you're in an event and you're using something you shouldn't, if it's noticeable at all, you're going to get called for it. So, but in general, I don't disagree with him on the fact that this was an important part. Now, let's follow that all the way down, and say that Silent Line is online right now and we can play it.
Right.
I think this is good to talk about because this is going to segue a bit into I don't like this, which is the gentleman's ban.
Yep. Yes, we're going.
I don't see anything wrong with people coming in with ACs that they have built in any fashion. And if you don't want to fight that particular part, you have options. You don't have to fight that person, or maybe you can ask them to take it off and say, "Hey, look, I'm trying to kind of get myself ready for this event. This tournament's coming up. Can you maybe not use that part because it's going to be banned? Do you have an alternative to that?" Maybe they'll change it. Maybe they'll tell you to fuck off. But at the same time, you have the option to not fight that person either. So, I guess I don't see such a big deal. and so this I guess does go directly into gentleman bans, which I don't like, because I think that you do have those options. The gentleman ban is kind of like for the non-competitive setting, for non-tournament settings, which is that don't use this part, please. I guess is what a gentleman's ban is.
Oh.
I'm basically asking for you not to use this generic cheap piece of crap that's in the game. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, well, I tend to recall, your note. I know you always beg me, not to use a GNL or,
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, but seriously though, about the gentleman's ban. It was a ban that was not quote unquote official. E.g., if you came in and if you used this part, you weren't going to be DQ'd for it, right? But if you used it, it was frowned upon, and you didn't have a legitimate win. Those of you that have played Street Fighter Alpha, good example. You do a KO in the corner from a block string, and you get that little cheat flashing. Yeah, you could pretty much imagine that over your head if you use that part, apparently. So, and I'm going to leave a link to in the description if anybody wants to peel back through some of the old tournament links. ACG is a great spot that hosts a lot of those, but they still have a lot of the old ban lists posted, including some of the gentleman's ban, which were special bans listed. The specific one I'm talking about here, I think you'll go with this, Tierson, is from MOC6. There were special gentleman's bans on the UA core and the Rock 4 pulse rifles, and the conditions were for the UA core, possibly they could not have hangers equipped, and for the pulse rifle, it couldn't be hangered.
I don't have. I say my piece, but right now, if I don't have anything nice to say, I'm not going to say anything at all. That's where I'm at the moment.
But
I'm too far removed from those games to really.
I get you.
Remember too much.
But where this does put us is where the line started to blur, or where the line got muddy about where these restrictions should sit. It was a very straightforward process earlier on in AC. Doing very rigorous tests to see how this lone part was an enabler or how it affected gameplay. This just started to get really dirty though when you got into the grit of deciding, well, this core is fine, but you can't have any hangers in it. But the core is designed for hangers. You can't do anything else.
I do remember that.
That's what the UA was the fat core with the core AMS on it. For the front, it had like 4 interceptors. Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah, it was a hanger-only core. That was its only function. But the complaint was, well, the stats are already so rounded, it can't have hangers as well. And things just get so mixed up at that point. The same with the Rock 4. It's like, oh, it's okay if I use this right, yeah. But what if I put it in my core? No. Well, that's a problem. You can't. At that point, I think the idea of a ban gets so exclusive to a region that you almost can't call it a true ban anymore, or a true restriction, because it's not. I mean, it's listed in its own special separate category that, in large part, most of the community doesn't look at this, and we're gonna, I want to reemphasize this. Gentlemen's bans were not widespread, okay, throughout the community and competitive events. For especially the Midwest, I never saw a gentleman's ban happen in any of the events. I know for East Coast, I never saw any. Those of you that remember, send in and correct me.
None on my watch, that's for sure.
Yeah. No. I know we for a fact never had any. But when I first became aware of them, it was the West Coast events specifically. So I never got to talk to those players about how they experienced, the tournament. And in light of those, what was it like? Was it really messy? Or I'd imagine it could get messy. So.
And generally speaking, specifically when it came to the Midwest, at least during the era when I was running the events, which I think it was about a 3-year span, in large part, you had to talk me into a ban.
Yeah.
And that's how I thought you needed to do it. You really need to come to the community at large, but specifically since they were mine events, you've got to talk me into this, because I'm going to try to find every which way to not ban something. And that's not because I used the part or anything, but because you needed to have that kind of critical thinking to saying, this is in the game, but it shouldn't be. And for us to go to that point and to say you can't use this, I thought was the biggest of deals. And
you weren't alone in that. You definitely weren't alone in that regard. One thing that I took, going into, doing the ACMAs was making it just a critical note of this, that there are these parts, but if you go too restriction happy, it's a mess, and a giant ban list like that's never any fun to see. So they did take some persuasion, and I know on your part too, you always like to do a lot of testing as well, like with like gatherings, or not even the pre-tournament gatherings, but other gatherings beforehand. Harlequin and a lot of others would host them, and that would be our chance to really get hands-on and sit down. But yeah, ideally you wanted a condensed list.
And thankfully, I did have Gimpy, who we had played together since AC1, when there was about a dozen of us that played together back in those days. But he continued to play, and at that point with AC3, we had a couple of our older friends that still played as well, but not like he and I played daily, and we played often. And he was, again, I mean, a lot of you aren't really going to remember him because he was very rarely on the forums, but he was at all the events, and really good guy. But he didn't go for being a cheap son of a bitch, but he could do it very, very well. So it was definitely, that was really helpful, was to sit down with somebody who I could respect as a player, but also who I knew could be dirty with these parts. So like, Gimpy, put this part on.
Yep.
We need to test this out. We're gonna spend the night doing this too. And be like, all right, well, let's do it. And so we would. He would get me to the point of being infuriated. And just because, that's what it needed.
Yep.
It needed that kind of testing. It needed to be taken to that point. So, it put this in the hands of somebody who plays really dirty, or just, really cheap, or is really good this way or another. And, how much does this matter? And, so it was very good in that respect, too. But at the same time, most of it did come down to the general consensus of the community at large. All right, so I think we've talked that to death.
Into the ground.
Let me just say one last thing. ACMM2, the event obviously held after ACMM1.
Yep.
MG800 was banned, and I think the general consensus was that, and I think that was the only banned part, was the MG800. I think a lot of people thought, in my personal opinion, ACMM2 was the best out of the four events. A lot of fun. At that point, Silent Line had been out for quite a while. People really had a chance to establish their builds, establish the game, get to know the game really well. That part was not in there, and I don't think anyone blinked one bit about it and gave it a second thought.
I don't think so either. You would have thought with the Absence 800 you'd see more Crow usage.
Crow. What did we do anything with the Crow?
When we talk AC3 era bands, these always pop up, especially in SL. Crow and MG800 were always the most scrutinized, and
right.
Crow, especially because that was such an early form of a really powerful ECM. You dropped that, it wasn't a flash rocket, it just, you're blanked out. Didn't matter, what your stats were. So that one, it'd be interesting, to compile some of our old list and really come up with what was there. I'm just saying that one was a possibility.
I've got them somewhere. I've got all the lists somewhere, but I don't remember. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we did ban the Crow too. Maybe that was just such a no-brainer.
For sure. There were some obscure ones. Like, I know sides weren't banned. If I remember, side shields. They were really big on some of like the Go map tanks and whatnot, or the super defense formulas. It shows. Even if you stop some of these major parts, from being used, like there wasn't a guarantee back then that everybody would just hop on the next boat.
Yeah, and I guess I have to correct myself on that. We probably did ban the Crow, but honestly, that was such a no-brainer that I don't think there was even any dispute on that. So I guess I have to correct myself. I'm an old man. I forget these things.
That's why I'm here to help, man. That's why I'm here to help.
I'll have to look into that. I should find all that stuff. You're always on me to get those tapes out. We were talking about those tapes just yesterday.
Hey, for years, I'm not going to forget that one. I'm not going to forget those.
They'll get out. We were talking about that.
Yeah, you bet.
You bet. Yeah, but that's all I've got on band parts. AC5, we were very lucky. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Armored Core 5, in my opinion, is the most balanced game to date. And after patches, there we go. We have the option of getting patches and getting these things fixed. I never saw a single part banned at any events for AC5.
Yeah, for sure. That's something interesting to compare and contrast and look at going forward. Well, here we are. The community is not enforcing these bans. If anything, this is the wrong platform to do that. You have From actively inputting patches. Unfortunately, we haven't got all of them.
We don't
on
have
time. We do not have them. That's the worst part.
I'm happy about that.
And we're
It's too
really
late to fix it.
It is. Alas, here we are. At the end of 5. But hopefully we can pull this all together for verdict day. If the format's really going to change, okay, if this is really going to go out of our hands, and if it's going to be taken into developer hands, please give us the most updated form of what we have, so we can get the ball rolling where we need and make the kind of dialogue and community structure we need from that. So.
We probably should end here. I think we are about 20 minutes over. So, and unless there was anything else that you really needed to get in for this week, I think I'll just do the plugs and we can get on out of here.
I think we covered our most prominent ads up front, so let's wrap this one up.
All right. So yeah, we did go a little bit over, guys. Sorry about that. Hope you don't mind too much. But all right, so we'll end it with that. So. Again, we got the contest for copy of Verdict Day going on at ArmoredCoreLegacy.com, and go ahead and go over there. We got our dedicated part of the forums, and enjoy that or any other part. Let's see. We want to hear what you think about anything we talked about here, or anything going on in Armored Core. Obviously, you've got a couple big nerds about the game here, so we want to hear it. We want to hear whatever you say. You can post. Again, got a dedicated section at ArmoredCoreLegacy.com, or we do check the other forums on a regular basis, posting our dedicated topics around there. Besides that, give us an email. That's our preferred method to hear from you guys. RavensVoiceACL at gmail.com, and I think that's it. Next week, I'm not really sure what's going on. We may have an interview. We may be talking about something else until I get that first interview in here. I'm really not going to know, because I keep on wanting to get it in next week. So.
Stay peeled. So.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
Take care. Thanks for listening.